Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching the brand new episode of To The Point with your host Kriti Mishra. And today we have a very special guest on our show, President of Inter-Parliamentary Union, His Excellency, Durato Pacheco. Sir, welcome to Rajya Sabha TV and thank you so much for joining us.
It is a pleasure to join you.
Sir, this was your first official visit and otherwise also the first visit to India. Of course, you addressed the members of Parliament, you called on Speaker of Lok Sabha, Vice President of India, who's also the Chairman of Rajya Sabha, you interacted with Prime Minister. What were the big takeaways? How was the experience?
It was an amazing experience, may I say. We know that India has an important role on the international diplomacy. And not only because the population of India, but also because your leadership. You are discovering ways, very easy ways, to achieve a position in so many international levels. But one thing is what we knew when we read an article in a newspaper or when we saw something on TV. Other thing is when we are talking with your leaders face to face and we may understand how important India not just can be, is real the important player in our world. And so with all your leadership in your fields, with the Prime Minister, the leader of your parliament, the Vice President of the country, the Foreign Affairs Minister, I saw all of them not just worried with your people, but also with the world. How is it possible to have a better world? Because we understand that multilateralism is essential, work together are essential to solve global problems, not just the traditional ones, but the new ones like this fight against COVID-19.
Absolutely, sir. You also made a very important statement while you were addressing the members of Parliament, and you also expressed support of Portugal for India's permanent position at the UNSC. Now, in June 2020, India was elected as non-permanent member of the UNSC. Going forward, what kind of role do you foresee for India at the UNSC?
UN is one essential organization of our world, where all the states are present, but the equilibrium between countries shows the reality of the middle of the last century. Will not represent the reality of our century. And so we need to reform the UN, to adapt it to the reality, as we do in our lives. If I will work as I did it 40 years ago, I will not have the results that I wish. And the same with the organization United Nations. And one of the questions that are on the table is to have more permanent members in the Security Council of UN. Of course, India must be there because you are an essential player in our world. It's impossible to think in Asia and the equilibrium of powers without India. It's impossible to think that we will have solution, for instance, in the climate change if you are not committed with that. And so, after it, we will have in Security Council the presence of France and England and not India. What is that? It's not the reality of our century. It's the reality of the books of history.
All right, sir. You're making a very important point there. But you also called on Vice President of India, Mr. M. Venkaiah Naidu. You called on Speaker of Lok Sabha, Mr. Om Birla. Now, Vice President said that IPU must focus on issues of democratic governance and mustn't become a forum for bilateral issues. Similarly, Speaker Om Birla said that no parliament must discuss the laws passed by other parliament. I just wanted to know, what is your take on this?
Of course, I agree with them. if we put in the agenda of IPU bilateral issues, that may be important, I don't deny it, it not represents a problem of the world. It may represent a problem for one country or for two countries. I will always give this example. Portugal and Spain, we are neighbors, and we have a good relations, no problem at all. But sometimes we have problems with water, because our rivers, the Portuguese, are coming from Spain. And in a winter where the rain is not coming, we think that the Spanish will keep all the water for them, and also our farmers, for instance, and our people needs water, and became a problem. How to solve this? Between bilateral dialogue, of course. We will not put this in the agenda of UN or in the agenda of IPU. Our Prime Minister will talk with the Prime Minister of Spain and we'll try to find a solution. And it happens sometimes. And so, IPU is a global forum to discuss global problems and to find global solutions. If someone asks the intermediation of IPU to solve very local problem, of course, we should be available to do it. And we have some committees where we try to find solutions to local problems. For instance, Cyprus, they are divided, and we have a part of Turkish and the other that are supported by Greece. Of course, we create a committee to help them to fix their own problems, but a specific and a concrete committee, not in the agenda of IPU. In the agenda of IPU, yes, we have other problems: how to fight poverty, how to defend democracy to everyone, how to achieve the SDGs that are important to have a better life to all the people of the world. This is global issues that needs to be in our agenda, not the problems that one country has with others.
So you're talking about solutions. I'd also like to ask you that terrorism is one problem where global approach is needed. Global counter-terrorism approach is needed. How do we strengthen global partnership to combat the menace of terrorism?
First of all, we try to defend dialogue between countries, people and religions. And also try to have and to defend the creation of programs to develop the countries where poverty is so important, and so massive collection of poor people there. Because we know when people, essentially young people, don't feel that a country can give them hope and future, then they can be attracted to extremist positions. And so we need to help all countries and all governments to create programs that can, in education, but also to create jobs, to have a better civil society, and this way they can give hope and future to their own people, and maybe the fanatism of some religions, of some political ideas cannot spread there. Other thing is about legislation. Yes, we may try to find the best practice, not just to fight a criminal behavior, but also, for instance, how to finance this kind of movements. And if we find a good practice, we will not keep to ourselves. We should spread to the others. Because this way, other countries can approve them, adapt them to their own reality. It's better to put copy and save, of course. It's to do in a different way because it depends on each reality. But it can be ideas of legislation that can be done. Also, again, about the proliferation of extremism ideas in our social media. Of course, we defend the freedom, all freedoms, and also the freedom of press. But one thing is the freedom of press. If I do something wrong, it should be, of course, on the news, and you not just may, you must criticize me. But this is one thing. The other thing is to use social media to spread ideas of hate between the people, between countries, between religions. The last visit of the Pope Francis to Iraq, and when he met the Imam Shiita of Qatar, he said he is a man of God. And it is very important because it shows how it is possible to have dialogue between people. And to the Pope, Catholic, Christian, the Imam of Islam is a man of God as well. And these kind of ideas, yes, we need to spread them, know the others, of hate between ourselves.
So you talked about legislation. What kind of legislation are you hinting at?
For instance, movements of capitals. We know that the terrorism needs money to survive, to buy people and to buy guns. And this money are coming from somewhere. And so we need to create legislation that can avoid this kind of movements of capitals that in the end will go to promote terrorism and war between human beings.
So strike at terror financing, that's what you're
Of
looking
course.
at. Yeah. All right, sir. Moving ahead and talking about economy. You also said that Indian economy under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi is progressing well. Now, several multilateral institutions have projected a double-digit growth for India in the years to come. How do you see India's role in the post-pandemic world order?
We hope very soon we can go to this new order, the post-COVID, because it affects all our life. And we say in Europe that we have not just one pandemic, we have more than one, because we have the health pandemic, but when we control it, we will see an economic pandemic as well. Yes. Because a lot of shops, we lost a lot of shops, a lot of business closed doors, and we have the increasing of poverty in so many countries because they depend of tourism, and it is not possible to travel, because small business, they didn't survive for a lockdown of many weeks, and so on. And so we needed to recover from that. And India is going so well that you will have an important role. Not just as one example, but also because you are available to help other countries also to recover from their own situation. We saw that with the vaccines. You are giving vaccines for so many countries of the world that they needed just to say thank you. I saw on the news this week the Prime Minister of Jamaica saying thank you to your country because they don't have resources to buy vaccines. Only India gave vaccines to this small country of the world. And so, helping the others, you will help yourself because you will be more influenced. You will have more influence in in this society, in this world, and you will find that it's possible to give, and what you are giving is not a spend, is an investment to achieve a stronger position, the leadership position in our post-COVID times. And India is a real one example because there are other superpowers that are just thinking on themselves and forget the countries of the world, they don't have resources to recover.
All right, sir. Talking about India's association with the IPU, it has been participating at various forums, advisory committees, parliamentary committees. Now, of course, CAG of India, who is the Comptroller and Auditor General, has been also elected as the external auditor of the IPU. How would the relationship between IPU and India be further strengthened or fortified?
It is very important, all the positions that India have in our organization. Not just because it's India, but because you are the largest democracy of the world, and so we share the same values. Because I say always, we have in our organization real democracies and, may I say, special democracies. And but we need to accept because we will not interfere in internal issues of a country. But, of course, we prefer to have the collaboration and to have in all the positions real Democrats. And so, yes, India we have. The internal auditor, it is very important because transparency is essential in all organizations and also in IPU. We reserve resources from the countries, and all countries of the world need to know that all the expenses are in accordance with the rules. And so the auditor will say how we spend the money, but also he may give ideas how to do better. And we don't need to be afraid of that, because I will not do the things today as I did it 10 years ago. Now, for instance, we may buy tickets by internet, and maybe I can save money. 10 years ago, I will ask an agency to give me a budget to go to somewhere. Now I will look and I will reserve directly. And so these kind of procedures are important because they will show that all of us, we may improve ourselves and IPU itself. And if you improve, we can save money and to do more things. To do things that maybe that sometimes all the other presidents of IPU, they wish to do, but they are not available to do it because they don't have resources to do it. So it's not a criticism to them, it's okay, we needed to adapt ourselves, to adapt to these new times, and maybe if we save money in some cases, it will be possible to do more things with the same budget. And this is what I'm waiting for the auditor, and I wish to receive a report as soon as possible.
So, you're talking about democratic governance. This reminds me of the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment in India, giving constitutional status to Panchayati Raj institutions and also urban local bodies. What are the big takeaways there for strengthening grassroots level democracy?
Democracy should be in all levels of power, not just to a national level, but regional and local. Because this way, people will feel that they will have a role in all the decisions for their own town and for their own region and for finally to the government. And this way, democracy is more inclusive. And we need to have the participation of everyone in politics and also in elections. One of the problems in many countries in Europe and also, for instance, in the US is the abstention that is growing and growing and growing because people feels that their decisions are not important. Yes, they are. I remember when it happened the referendum in the UK to decide if UK remains or will leave the European Union, more than 50% of the British didn't vote. Yeah. After the result, a lot of people asked a second referendum because they said, if I know the result, I went to vote. I should vote. Of course. So, and it happened there, and it may happen in Portugal or in India. To show to everyone how important is the participation, we need to have democracy in all levels. Because this way, people will understand, yes, I'm showing the government of my city. And then I will see what are the best programs to develop my city. If it's to do underground or to spend more money in education or to have a more clean city, if it's better to invest in sports or and so on. So it depends of each city. And people need to feel that their participation is essential. And this way, the democracy will be more inclusive.
All right, sir. You were elected as president of the IPU in this historic election that we had through virtual mode. This mandate of 3 years, the priorities and vision.
I'm thinking because these 3 months are completely different to what I'm waiting for because of the pandemic. For instance, we hope to have our meeting, assembly meeting in May in Geneva, and now it will be an online assembly again. And so it's not the same thing. Of course, it's better than not to do the assembly, but it's not the same. But what I wish for the organization is very, very clear. First of all, we need to achieve the universal participation, and it means that all countries of UN need to come to the IPU as well. Yes. We need to have more 14 to achieve this target. Not so much. There are small countries, and in these small countries, I may be afraid that, for instance, some of them are not members of IPU because they don't have resources to travel to our annual meetings, for instance. Okay, so we create a program with the contribution of special friends and that can afford, with money, the spends of these countries that are not available. They don't have resources to put their MPs traveling to the assemblies, for instance, in Geneva or in India or in other countries. And this is the case of 13 of these 14. And finally, we need to achieve the other one. That are not so easy, but we will invest a lot to have the United States again as member of IPU. And we may try to take the train of the Biden administration. They decide to come back to Paris Agreement. Yes. They decide to come to the Health World Organization. They are thinking to come back to UNESCO, and why not to the IPU? And so very soon as possible, to go to the US because they have traveling restrictions. The Secretary General and the delegation of some countries that wish this target, this objective, we will go to Washington, try to get the US as a member again of IPU, because it is impossible to think in a world organization without India, or without China, or without Russia, or without the United States. It's not because we like the United States. If this is not the United States, but it's India, it's the same problem. It's impossible to think about it. So, universal participation. Secondly, give visibility to the organization. Right. We approved so many resolutions. We have approved so many texts. And sometimes I think that no one knows in our society when we are leaving the hotel room where we have the meeting, people outside do not know what we have done. So we need to do it in a different way. It's a society of communication. We need to learn how to communicate. I know that IPU is an old organization with more than 100 years old. Okay, but we need to adapt to our new times. For instance, we will have the speakers conference in Vienna next September, in presence, I hope so. And there we'll have the speakers there. Many countries will not send the media with their own speakers. Why not to share by streaming all the meeting? And so the press in their own countries will have access to the discussions that will happen in Vienna. It's so easy to do it. But okay, we need to put it. Visibility. And finally, transparency. Sometimes, I don't want to be impolite with no one, but sometimes I'm afraid that the programs that IPU have to help some countries, some parliaments, happen because they have a special relation with the president or with the secretary general. It's not fair. All programs need to be shared with all countries of IPU. And then, of course, if it's not possible to help all, we need to choose. But this is the role of a politician. Every day you need to take decisions. But not because a part of the countries didn't know that, and so it was more easier decision. Transparency. Finally, if we achieve this, universal visibility and transparency, we may be more relevant.
Absolutely. So the focus has to be on universal participation, transparency, visibility as well. On that note, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Pleasure talking to you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.